Have you walked into a car dealership lately? I did this morning, and for a second, I thought I'd stumbled into a luxury yacht showroom down at the Gold Coast. But nope. I was just looking at a dual cab ute. Because apparently, in 2025, the great Australian dream isn't a quarter-acre block anymore, mostly because nobody can afford one. No, the new dream is signing your life away for a shiny metal box that costs more than my parents' first house. We are seeing a trend that is absolutely mental. Nearly 1 in 5 new car buyers in this country is walking out with a monthly repayment of over 1,500 Aussie dollars. 1,500 bucks. That's more than rent in some parts of Adelaide. That's a mortgage repayment in 2019. That is a truly obscene amount of money to drop every single month just to sit in traffic on the M1 or the Westgate Bridge. Yet somehow, we've reached a point where dropping 4 figures monthly just to drive to your job, to pay for the car you use to drive to the job, has become the new normal. G'day, I'm Lochi. I spend way too much time staring at spreadsheets and analyzing financial trends that make absolutely no sense, until you dig a bit deeper and realize, they actually make even less sense than you originally thought. If you're someone who looks at these astronomical car payments, these massive Ford Rangers and Ram trucks clogging up the inner city streets, and wonders, am I missing something? Or has the entire country lost its collective mind? Well, you're in the right place. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, because today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most financially destructive habits in modern Australia. We are talking about the Ute Tax, the death of the affordable hatch, and the silence of the negative equity trap. Now, before we dive into who can actually afford these payments, let me share some numbers that will either make you feel better about your 2010 Corolla or completely terrify you about the state of Aussie household debt. According to recent data, the average car loan repayment for a new vehicle in Australia is currently sitting around $900 a month. That's the average. That includes the little hatchbacks and the base models. But here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean deeply concerning. A massive chunk of new car loans now carry monthly repayments exceeding $1,500. We are talking about your top-spec Ford Rangers, your Toyota Hilux Rogues, and don't even get me started on the LandCruisers. If you walk into any Bunnings car park on a Saturday morning and count the first 10 newish cars you see, roughly 2 or 3 of them are costing their owners more than $1,500 every single month. And it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. More than 20% of borrowers are now opting for 84-month loan terms. That's 7 years, mate. 7 years. 7 years to pay off something that starts depreciating the second the rubber hits the road. Let's put that in perspective. A 7-year loan term is longer than most people stay in their jobs these days. It's longer than the average Aussie marriage lasts before the first rough patch. It's approaching the length of time it takes a kid to get through primary school. Imagine explaining to your kid on their first day of year 1 that you'll finally own that Ford Ranger by the time they're graduating year 6. The stark reality is that affordable car payments have become about as common as a polite driver in Sydney traffic. Only a tiny fraction of new car payments are under $600 a month now. Meanwhile, the $1,500 plus club is growing faster than a mold spore in a humid Brisbane rental. Think about that. You are almost twice as likely to find someone making a 4-figure car payment as you are to find someone paying something reasonable. So, how did we get here? How did we go from a world where a car payment over $700 was considered steep, to one where a $1,500 payment barely raises an eyebrow? The answer lies in a perfect storm of economic factors that have converged to create what I can only describe as automotive financial insanity. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Or rather, the yank tank in the room. Vehicle prices. The average cost of a new car in Australia has skyrocketed. We aren't just buying cars anymore. We are buying lounge rooms on wheels. The average price of a new car delivered in Australia is now hovering around the $60,000 to $70,000 mark. But let's be real, if you want the dual cab ute that everyone else has, you're looking at $80K, $90K, maybe even over $100K for a Raptor or a fully kitted LandCruiser 300 series. To put this in perspective, $80,000 is almost the entire annual post-tax income for a median earner in this country. We are talking about people financing an entire year's worth of blood, sweat, and tears just to have something to drive to the job site or the office. But the sticker price is only part of the story. The average amount financed has hit all-time highs. Why? Because the average trade-in value is dropping, and people aren't saving for deposits anymore. It used to be the rule, 20% down. Now, people are putting down diddly squat and financing the whole lot, plus on-road costs, plus dealer delivery, plus that paint protection scan they sold you in the office. It's like trying to climb Mount Kosciuszko while someone keeps adding rocks to your backpack. Then we have interest rates. The RBA, Reserve Bank of Australia, went on a hiking spree, and car loan rates followed suit with a vengeance. The average auto loan interest rate for new cars is sitting comfortably around 7% to 9%. Used cars? You're looking at 12%, maybe 15% if your credit isn't squeaky clean. Remember when 1.9% comparison rates were plastered all over the TV during the footy? Yeah, those days are gone. They are history. Low-interest financing has shrunk to almost nothing. So not only are Aussies borrowing more money for more expensive cars, but we are paying significantly more interest on that borrowed money. Automakers used to subsidize these loans to move metal. Now, supply chains are fixed, sure, but why would they offer you a discount when people are apparently willing to pay full price plus interest? This brings us to perhaps the most troubling aspect of this entire situation: the silent killer of wealth, negative equity. We are seeing a massive spike in trade-ins that are underwater. That means more than 1 in 4 people owe more on their existing car than it's actually worth when they decide they need a new one. Here's how this financial trap works, Australian style. You buy a $75,000 Ranger on a 7-year loan with no deposit. 2 years later, you get bored. Or maybe you realize parking a truck the size of a tank in an inner-city Woolies car park is a nightmare. You want to swap it for a Tesla or a smaller SUV. But guess what? You still owe $60,000 on a loan, but the market value of your ute has dropped to $45,000. That $15,000 gap? It doesn't just disappear, mate. It gets rolled into your new loan. So now you're buying a $60,000 car, but you're taking out a loan for $75,000. Your repayment skyrockets. You are essentially paying for 2 cars, the one you're driving and the ghost of the one you traded in. We are seeing people rolling $10,000–$15,000 of negative equity into new loans. It is financial quicksand. And the more you struggle, the deeper you sink. What makes this whole situation even more bizarre is the type of vehicles we are talking about. If someone wants to finance a Porsche for $2,000 a month, fine. That's a luxury toy. That's their prerogative. But we are seeing 4-figure payments on family SUVs, on utes that never see a dirt road, on vehicles that are essentially just grocery getters. The psychological shift in Australia has been remarkable. Somehow, we've normalized the idea that transportation should consume a massive portion of our household income. We've got pavement princesses, massive off-road vehicles that stay pristine, costing families more per month than their grocery bill. Would you finance a brand new 85-inch TV for 7 years? Would you roll negative equity from your old fridge into a loan for a new one? Of course not. You'd be laughed out of Harvey Norman. But when it comes to cars, all rational thinking seems to go out the window. We treat cars as assets, but they are liabilities. Rapidly depreciating liabilities. And here's the thing that really gets me. Many of these buyers could afford much less expensive transportation. But we want the GXL, not the GX. We want the Raptor, not the XLT. We want the leather, the sunroof, the tech pack. The difference between the base price and the model people actually buy averages about $15,000. That's 30% over the starting price. This isn't just about keeping up with the Joneses anymore. In Australia, it's about keeping up with the Hemsworths. We've created a culture, especially in the tradie and suburban scene, where your ute is your status symbol. People brag about their monthly repayment like it's a badge of honor. Yeah, mate, $1,600 a month, she's a beast. No, mate, she's a burden. The real question becomes, who exactly can actually afford these payments? According to most financial experts, car payments should represent no more than 15% of your monthly take-home pay for new cars. Ideally 10%. So, let's do some quick maths. And this might hurt a bit. For a household to comfortably afford a $1,500 monthly car payment using that 15% rule, they would need approximately $10,000 in monthly take-home pay. Net. After tax. That translates to roughly $160,000 to $180,000 in annual gross household income, depending on your HECS debt and the Medicare Levi surcharge. Now, the median household income in Australia is decent, around $98,000 to $100,000 depending on which ABS stats you look at. That means more than half of all Aussie households earn way less than what is required to safely service these loans. Let's look at this geographically. If you're living in Toorak or Double Bay, earning $300K a year, go for it. Buy the G-Wagon. But the data shows it's not just the wealthy suburbs buying these cars. We see massive uptake in the outer suburbs. Places like Western Sydney, the outer fringes of Melbourne, the mining towns in WA and Queensland. In some of these areas, a $1,500 car payment represents 30%, sometimes 40% of a single income earner's pay. That is financial self-destruction. Generation X seems to lead the charge here. They're in their peak earning years. Maybe the kids have moved out, or maybe they need the towing capacity for the caravan. They're carrying the biggest loans. But we are seeing it with younger generations too. Millennials and older Gen ZS, who have given up on buying a house because the property market is cooked, so they think, screw it, I'll buy a nice car instead. It's the avocado toast argument flipped on its head. It's not the brunch that's killing them. It's the $80,000 ute parked outside the cafe. Here's a fun fact. Borrowers with excellent credit scores are actually more likely to have these massive payments. Why? Because banks love you. If you have a credit score of 800, a bank will happily hand you enough rope to hang yourself financially. They'll lend you $100K for a car, no questions asked. You want a Defender? Here you go, mate. Sign here. But let's paint a picture of what this looks like in real life. Let's create a fictional Aussie couple. Let's call them Shazza and Dazza. Shazza and Dazza are a dual-income household living in a metro area. Combined, they earn $150,000 a year. Not bad. That's well above the median. On paper, they're doing great. After tax, super, HECS repayments, their take-home pay might be around $8,500 a month. A $1,500 car payment represents about 17% of their take-home. A little over the recommended limit, but manageable, right? Wrong. Because that $1,500 number is a lie. That is just the subscription fee to have the metal sitting in your driveway. Let's look at the real-world invoice that the dealer conveniently forgot to mention. Insurance. Premiums in Australia have gone through the roof lately. Insuring a $70,000 vehicle, especially if you're under 30 or live in certain postcodes, you're looking at $200 a month easily. Maybe more. Rego. Registration is a killer. In states like Victoria or NSW, you're looking at nearly $1,000 a year, so call it $80 a month. Fuel. If you're driving a diesel ute or a large SUV in stop-start city traffic, you are burning cash. Fill up a Ranger tank? That's $150 a pop. Do that twice a month? That's $300. Servicing and tires. Big cars have big tires. A set of rubber for a large SUV can cost $1,500. Regular servicing? Add another $100 monthly to the sinking fund. Tolls. If you live in Sydney or Melbourne, forget about it. You could easily be spending $200 a month just for the privilege of driving on a road. So, let's redo the maths for Shazza and Dazza. $1,500 loan repayment, $200 insurance, $300 fuel, $80 rego, $100 maintenance, $150 tolls. Suddenly, that car isn't costing $1,500. It's costing $2,330 a month. Remember, they take home $8,500. That one vehicle is now chewing up 27% of their entire net income. And that is before they pay a single dollar towards rent or their mortgage. Before groceries. Before electricity bills, which are skyrocketing. Before putting the kids in daycare. And God forbid they need 2 cars. If both partners drive decent cars, transportation costs could easily consume 40% to 45% of their household income. This is where it gets scary. Housing typically consumes 30% to 40% of income for many Aussies right now. Add in 25% for transport. Add in food, utilities, school fees. Suddenly, that 6-figure household income doesn't seem quite so comfortable. It feels tight. It feels like living paycheck to paycheck. The problem isn't necessarily that they can't make the payments today. The problem is opportunity cost. The problem is that making these payments comes at the expense of building wealth. It comes at the expense of saving for a house deposit. It comes at the expense of putting extra into your super. What's particularly concerning is the psychology. There's something about car shopping that turns rational Aussies into financial gamblers. Maybe it's the smell of new leather. Maybe it's the salesperson saying, "Mate, it's only an extra $50 a week." We break everything down to weekly payments here. $200 a week. That's nothing. That's a night out at the pub. But over 7 years, that's tens of thousands of dollars. Dealerships love this logic. They upsell you on the protection pack, the tint, the extended warranty. Oh, you want the tow bar? And the snorkel? You're never going to cross a river, but it looks tough, right? Add it on. Before you know it, you've added $5,000 to the loan, which over 7 years at 9% interest actually costs you nearly $8,000. A common guideline suggests the 20th of April, 10 rule. Put down 20%. Take out a loan for no more than 4 years. Spend no more than 10% of monthly take-home pay on the vehicle expenses. Using this conservative approach, a couple earning $150K a year should be looking at a car that costs them maybe $800 a month total, including petrol and insurance. That means driving a used Mazda 3, or maybe a 5-year-old Hyundai Tucson. But people don't want that. They want the tech. They want the CarPlay. They want the heated seats. They want to look successful. And dealerships play the safety card perfectly. Oh, this model has autonomous braking and lane keep assist. Can you really put a price on your family's safety? Well, yes. Apparently, the price is an $84,000 debt burden. The reality check comes when you look at the total cost of the loan. A $1,500 payment for 7 years equals $126,000. 126,000 Australian dollars. For something that will be worth maybe $30,000 at the end of that loan term if you're lucky. You are essentially paying nearly $100,000 for the privilege of driving a depreciating asset. That is more than many people's entire super balance. And here's the part that should keep you awake at night. That $126,000 could have been invested. If you took that $1,500 monthly and put it into an ETF or a solid investment property offset account, earning even a modest 7% or 8% return, you'd have over $160,000 after 7 years. Instead, you have a 7-year-old Ute that needs a new transmission and has 200,000 clicks on the clock. Now,
Hey.
I know what some of you are thinking. But Lochi, my neighbor has a new Ranger and a boat, and he's just a Sparky. Sure, and he might be loaded. Tradies make good coin in this country. Or, he might be drowning in debt. See, many luxury car buyers are older Aussies who have paid off their homes. When you don't have a mortgage, a $1,500 car payment is easy. These grey nomads towing caravans with their LandCruisers? They can afford it. But for the young families, the middle-income earners, they are stretching. They are motivated by FOMO, fear of missing out. They feel like they deserve a win because everything else is so hard. I can't buy a house, so I'll buy a Raptor. It's lifestyle creep. You get a pay rise, so you get a better car. This monthly payment mentality has become a cancer in our culture. We don't ask how much is the car. We ask how much a week. Your brain processes $350 a week very differently to $85,000. The finance industry knows this. They are experts at exploiting this psychological quirk. So, who can actually afford these payments? Unless you are earning over $180K household income with minimal other debts, or you have a massive trade-in deposit, the answer is probably not you. And that's okay. There is nothing wrong with driving a paid-off 2015 Toyota Camry. In fact, that is the ultimate status symbol of someone who actually understands money. If you're watching this and you're driving a car that costs you less than 10% of your income, congratulations. You're winning. If you're currently drowning in a 4-figure payment and wondering how you got here, well, you're not alone. But maybe it's time to sell the beast, take the hit, and downgrade. Future you will thank you. Wealth isn't built by impressing strangers at traffic lights on the M4. Wealth is built by having options. And a $1,500 car payment removes a lot of your options. Drive safe, spend smart, and I'll catch you in the next one.